Jose Irizarry was a star agent for the DEA, winning awards and garnering frequent praise from his supervisors. That all changed when he was outed as a conspirator with the Colombian cartels, the same cartels he was supposed to be busting. The average salary for a DEA agent is just over $69,000. But with the outrageous sums of money he was collecting from his criminal scheme, Irizarry lived more like a high-ranking cartel boss. While most agents stationed overseas and living off a government salary don't end up buying houses, Irizarry bought a $767,000 home in Cartagena, Colombia, along with homes in South Florida and Puerto Rico. But it wasn't just property. Irizarry bought a BMW, 3 Land Rovers, and a $30,000 Tiffany diamond ring for his wife. He also flew first class to Europe, a journey he made with his Louis Vuitton luggage and a gold Hublot watch. As if all that wasn't enough, Irizarry hosted wild yacht parties with scantily clad women in Cartagena. Even though such parties were against DEA policy, fellow agents often attended, and they grew to legendary status amongst DEA employees. Most of us know that the job of the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, is to enforce the laws dealing with controlled substances in the United States. They investigate major traffickers, prepare their cases, and seize assets related to illegal dealings. But there's another page in the DEA playbook: undercover operations. Just like regular police officers who go undercover to investigate criminal activity, DEA agents will often pose as dealers and money launderers so the agency can identify real criminals. These undercover investigations involve secret bank accounts and confidential informants. They'll even conduct actual transactions with cartel members. Much of this undercover work revolves around Colombia, the country responsible for most of the party powder smuggled into the U.S. With the support of the Colombian government, the DEA assigns undercover agents to the country to infiltrate the cartels. Jose Irizarry was one of these agents. His peers and supervisors at the DEA described Irizarry as the perfect agent. That's until they discovered his secret double life. In Miami, where he lived before going undercover in Colombia, Irizarry got special permission from the agency to establish a covert operation that sent dirty money from the U.S. to Colombia. The DEA designed the operation to catch individuals suspected of trafficking in the U.S. and Colombia, and it was a resounding success. It led to several key arrests for the DEA and got Irizarry a new promotion: an undercover assignment in the Colombian city of Cartagena. Cartagena, a port city known for its tropical climate and beach resorts, was a much desired position for any DEA special agent. Irizarry was on top of the world. So how did this DEA superstar go from catching criminals to joining them? It all began with a man named Gustavo Yabrudi. Yabrudi was a Venezuelan-American who worked with Irizarry and the DEA as a confidential informant, someone secretly supplying them with information about cartel operations. Irizarry was originally Yabrudi's handler, the DEA agent responsible for overseeing him, but he became Yabrudi's partner in crime somewhere along the way. The two men opened a bank account which they used to collect money from overseas traffickers looking to get their dirty dollars back into Colombia. Over 6 years, Irizarry and Yabrudi used the account to launder $7 million in illegal proceeds. The two sometimes used the funds to buy electronics, textiles, and other goods. Then they'd turn around and sell those goods in Colombian markets for pesos. Finally, they used those pesos to pay the traffickers, and the wheels kept on spinning. But Yabrudi and Irizarry needed their own slice of the pie. Besides using the money to repay the traffickers, Irizarry and Yabrudi used DEA money to line their pockets. Irizarry even created fake DEA seizure orders or bank letters and then took money out of the account for himself. His trafficking clients, familiar with the high risks of laundering dirty money, were stuck between a rock and a hard place. They couldn't argue against it, so they just had to accept their losses. Using this strategy, Irizarry and Yabrudi secured nearly $1 million of dirty and DEA money for their personal use. Irizarry's legendary boat parties didn't last long. as the DEA banned them in 2015. In March of that year, a U.S. Justice Department report revealed that DEA agents had been attending parties with ladies of the night hired by Colombian cartels. The report also revealed that Colombian police officers watched over DEA weapons and property while the agents partied on board. When reports surfaced, the DEA didn't take long to ban the parties. But that didn't stop agents like Irizarry, who enjoyed breaking the rules and cheating the system. But it wasn't just Irizarry, with his yacht parties and expensive homes, who was involved in and benefiting from his criminal scheme. There was also a man named Diego Marin, cartel member connected to Irizarry by way of his second wife, Natalia Gomez, Marin's relative. U.S. and Colombian officials saw Marin as one of the top money laundering suspects in Colombia while Irizarry ran his scam. They believed Marin used cartel money to import shipping containers full of easily exchangeable goods, such as electronics and textiles, which he then sold in Colombian flea markets at a steep discount. They picked Marin up in 1993 for hiding dirty money and home appliances en route to Colombia, but they never charged him. Instead, he continued operating in Colombia, dodging prosecution by acting as an informant to multiple law enforcement agencies in the U.S. As it turned out, having a family connection to someone involved in the cartels was a big help for Irizarry. Irizarry leveraged his position in the DEA and Marin's extensive knowledge of the Colombian underworld to bag most of Marin's rivals. He effectively killed two birds with one stone. On the one hand, Irizarry made room for Marin to thrive. On the other hand, he made himself look good in front of his fellow DEA agents. Besides being married to a woman who was related to a Colombian cartel member, Irizarry showed other red flags that the DEA probably should have noticed. One of these red flags came from a polygraph exam that Irizarry had to complete before being hired. Going through a polygraph test, more commonly known as a lie detector test, is a fairly common procedure for individuals seeking important government jobs, especially ones dealing with security clearances and sensitive topics. Most of the time, the tests don't yield any exciting information, but when Irizarry took his, the results apparently showed signs of deception. It's unclear what questions sparked these signs of deception, or even what signs of deception meant in Irizarry's case, but it's baffling that the DEA got this information and still hired him. Polygraphs are nowhere near foolproof, but some estimate their accuracy in separating lies from truth to be as high as 87%. The next red flag was his shaky financial situation. In 2010, near the start of his career as a DEA agent, Irizarry filed for bankruptcy. He claimed assets of $150,000, but debts of $424,000. Despite being in debt to the tune of nearly $500,000, he was allowed to handle those huge financial transactions involved in his undercover DEA work. It's unclear whether those money problems were actually the reason Irizarry flipped his loyalties, but it's not hard to imagine that they at least played a part. Routinely handling millions of dollars as part of your job must be tempting when you owe almost $500,000. Irizarry's downfall finally came when law enforcement officials noticed a few incidents of suspicious behavior. The first incident occurred when a trafficker in Cali, Colombia, lost an $87,000 wire transfer because either Irizarry or his partner Yabrudi stole the money. They thought the trafficker was just another cartel criminal who'd have to accept the loss, but he was actually an informant for the Miami-Dade money laundering strike force. When the informant noticed the thousands of dollars missing, he reported the incident to the Justice Department, leading to Yabrudi's arrest. The final nail in the coffin for Irizarry, which came around the same time as the missing wire transfer, was a suspicious phone call he made trying to reverse the seizure of a container of commercial goods. It's not exactly clear why Irizarry wanted to reverse this routine DEA action, but it was probably related to one of his criminal associates. When an IRS agent noticed this call, he reported the incident to the DEA. This led to the agency discovering that Irizarry was messing with paperwork used to pay DEA informants so he could keep the money for himself. After that, it was basically over for the double agent. The feds arrested Irizarry and his cartel-connected wife Natalia Gomez in February 2020 at their home in San Juan, Puerto Rico. They charged the couple in a 19-count federal indictment, and each had to post a $10,000 bond for same-day release. When his case went to trial in September, Irizarry pleaded guilty to all 19 of his charges. He admitted to committing bank fraud and ordering DEA staff to send money intended for undercover operations to bank accounts he and his associates controlled. He also admitted to filing false DEA reports and diverting millions of dollars away from the control of the DEA. His wife also pleaded guilty to her charges: conspiracy to launder monetary instruments, charges: wire fraud and bank fraud, and was sentenced to 60 months of probation. Irizarry wasn't sentenced as quickly as his wife, despite his cut-and-dry guilty plea. The judge in charge of Irizarry's trial thought there was more to the case. When it came time for Irizarry's sentencing, the judge, Charlene Edwards Honeywell, initially refused to hand down a sentence. She felt that Irizarry was trying to weasel his way out of harsher sentencing by arguing that the money he'd misused had been government funds instead of dirty money. Laundering dirty money is a more serious offense, so this dispute about the exact nature of Irizarry's crime had real consequences for his punishment. However, the judge finally brought Irizarry to justice 5 months later, slapping him with 12 years in federal prison. The man who'd forged a high-profile, award-winning career out of putting criminals behind bars was locked away for committing the same crimes he was supposed to be fighting. Click to watch one of these next videos, and let us know in the comments section, would you rather have to be an actual cartel member or be a DEA agent undercover as a cartel member?